Throughout human history, there's been a deep fascination with what lies beneath our feet. From caverns to bottomless pits, mankind has always theorized about gateways to other worlds, portals to the unknown. One such alleged portal, buried deep in the hills of central Washington, has sparked decades of speculation and intrigue. The story revolves around a man named Mel Waters, a mysterious hole on his land, and a chain of bizarre events that may have unraveled a hidden reality. The mystery begins in the late 1990s, when a man named Mel Waters reached out to a popular late-night radio program, Coast to Coast AM. This wasn't just any call. What Mel shared would spark one of the most bizarre and enduring paranormal legends in American folklore. Mel claimed that on his rural property, about 9 miles west of Ellensburg, Washington, there was a massive hole, circular, around 9 feet in diameter, with stone walls lining the top. According to Mel, the hole had been there long before he acquired the land. The locals had been using it for generations as a garbage dump. Broken appliances, animal carcasses, even dead livestock. Anything unwanted was tossed into this ever-hungry pit. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. No matter how much waste was thrown in, the hole never seemed to fill. More alarmingly, Mel explained, there was no sound, no splash, no thud, no echo. It was as if the void absorbed everything in silence. Intrigued, Mel began conducting tests. His first was simple: measure the depth. He tied a lead weight to a strong spool of fishing line and began lowering it into the hole. He ran out of line, so he got more and more. In total, he claimed to have used over 80,000 feet of line, more than 15 miles, without ever reaching the bottom. No resistance, no sound, just an unending descent. This caught the attention of Coast to Coast AM's host, Art Bell, who had heard countless odd tales over the years. Yet even he seemed genuinely astonished by Mel's calm, serious recounting of events. Mel's curiosity didn't stop with measurements. He noticed strange behavior from animals near the hole. His dogs, usually fearless, refused to go near it. Birds avoided flying over it. Insects were nowhere to be found at the edge. It was as though the pit repelled life itself. Then came the radio experiment. Mel brought a portable radio near the hole and noticed something unsettling. As he approached the rim, the signal became distorted. Step back, and the signal cleared. Move forward again, and the station would shift entirely, sometimes playing music from a past era or broadcasts that hadn't aired in decades. Once, he swore he picked up a baseball game that had been played in the 1960s. Curious to know if his neighbors had experienced anything similar, Mel started asking around. One neighbor revealed something truly unbelievable. He said that he'd thrown his dead dog into the hole rather than bury it. Days later, while walking through the forest, he saw a dog that looked identical. Same color, same collar. He called out, but the dog fled without recognition. After Mel's first radio appearance, the story caught fire. He became a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM, and each time, the tale grew stranger. Not long after he went public, Mel noticed he was being watched. Unmarked vehicles slowly passed his home at night. Helicopters, unmarked and flying low, began appearing overhead. Then one day, while returning from town, Mel found the road to his property blocked by men in military uniforms. When he demanded an explanation, he was told a plane had crashed on his land and a federal operation was underway. Oddly, no crash had been reported in the news. There was no fire, no smoke, just heavily armed soldiers. Eventually, a man in civilian clothes approached Mel. He told him that the government had reassessed the land and declared it under federal jurisdiction due to environmental concerns. However, the government would lease the land from him for $3 million a year, on the condition that Mel leave the country and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Fearing what might happen if he refused, Mel accepted the deal. He relocated to Australia for 2 years, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. When Mel returned to the US, he tried to pick up the pieces. He had been diagnosed with terminal cancer in Australia, and, believing he had little time left, he wanted to reconnect with his family and update Art Bell. But as soon as he set foot on American soil, his problems escalated. While taking a bus trip to visit his nephew, a fight broke out on board. Police arrived, separated the passengers, and put them on different buses. Mel never made it to his destination. 12 days later, He woke up on a street in San Francisco. He had no memory of what had happened. There were needle marks and tape residue on his arms. His back molars were missing. And worst of all, his bank accounts were empty. The millions he had been paid were gone. Determined to find answers, Mel returned to his old property. His neighbors informed him that a massive government operation had taken place while he was away, but then one day, the site was suddenly abandoned. Even more baffling, the hole was gone, erased, as if it had never existed. But the story didn't end there. Word of Mel's experience reached a Native American tribe in Nevada who invited him to visit their land. There, Mel discovered another mysterious pit. It closely resembled the first, around 9 feet across and seemingly bottomless, but this one had metallic features. A ring of metal lined the top, with embedded metal rings extending downward. The area around the hole felt charged, as if full of static electricity. At the tribe's request, Mel attempted to measure its depth again, but as before, the line went down endlessly. The group began performing experiments. They lowered buckets of ice into the hole, expecting them to melt from the heat emanating from its edge. Instead, the ice came back hardened into a strange crystalline substance. Even stranger, it couldn't melt under open flame. Instead, it ignited and burned steadily for months. Their next experiment would be far more disturbing. One of the locals offered to be lowered into the hole himself, but the group eventually decided to use a sheep instead. As the animal approached the edge, it panicked. Just like Mel's dogs had years earlier, they lowered the sheep down in a secure crate to a depth of 1,000 feet. At that point, a deep humming began rising from the ground, and the animal went silent. When they brought it back up, the sheep was dead, but something was clearly wrong. They opened the carcass and discovered the animal had been cooked from within. But more disturbingly, inside the body was a black tumor, alive and pulsating. Carefully, they cut it open and found a small, seal-like creature inside, still connected to the sheep via an umbilical cord. It had moist, embryonic skin and unsettlingly human eyes. Without speaking, the group watched as it wriggled its way to the edge of the table, reaching toward the hole. Mel picked up the slick, alien being and gently placed it near the rim. It hesitated, then slid into the darkness and vanished. Shortly after returning from Nevada, Mel visited his doctor. To everyone's astonishment, his cancer had vanished. Without a trace, the disease that had once left him with months to live was simply gone. He believed, firmly, that the strange creature had somehow cured him. In 2002, Mel made his final appearance on Coast to Coast AM. After years of strange experiences, near-death encounters, and unimaginable discoveries, he vanished from the public eye. No more calls, no more emails. Some believe he was taken again, and this time, his memory wiped permanently. Despite the mystery surrounding his disappearance, one fact remains. People never stopped searching for the hole. For years, satellite images showed unexplained blacked-out zones in the area Mel described. Internet sleuths and amateur researchers pored over topographical maps, old radio transcripts, and land records. In the early 2010s, a video emerged online, claiming to show a drone exploring a remote depression in the Washington wilderness. The drone flew over a remote forest and spotted a dark circular void. As it hovered, its instruments began malfunctioning. Thermal readings spiked. GPS failed. The camera cut out as the drone was drawn into the hole, disappearing forever. No1 has since claimed responsibility for the video, and it remains unverified. But shortly after its release, there were reports of renewed military activity in the region. Could the hole still exist? Was it ever real to begin with? Skeptics argue the entire tale was fabricated. They point out that no official records exist of Mel Waters in Kittitas County, Washington. Some claim he used a pseudonym. Others argue he never existed at all. Geologists are quick to dismiss the possibility of a bottomless pit, explaining that any hole dug that deep would collapse under the pressure and heat of the Earth's crust. Mel's claims of lowering 15 miles of fishing line, they argue, are scientifically impossible. The line would have melted or snapped. Yet believers say the story doesn't need to make geological sense. Perhaps the hole was more than just a pit. Perhaps it was a tear in the fabric of reality itself. That would explain the radio broadcast from the past, the reappearance of a dead dog, and the unearthly creature born from the sheep.